Hey everyone, it's Brian Bergford with Bergford Performance Systems. I hope you are well. Bringing to you today some material that I think is going to be incredibly valuable for you. I would really encourage you to lean into this, dive into this, pay attention, because if you do, it's going to have a huge impact. We're talking about thriving through a crisis. What are the mental skills that you need to have dialed in challenging times? Because we are facing some very challenging times right now. These are principles and actions that we're going to get into and steps that you can take. I believe if you keep these top of mind, you're going to keep your mind right as you walk through this. Now, this video is going to be sort of broadly encompassing. It's going to have wide applicability to everyone, really. I'm going to have some more videos and resources that are targeted at specific groups, like healthcare workers on the front lines of this crisis, other essential workers, grocery store workers, drivers, etc. These are folks that probably are more busy than they've ever been in their entire lives. They're under perhaps more stress than they've ever, more intense, condensed stress than they've ever experienced. They have a unique set of challenges, and so do the people that are under stay-at-home orders that can't work right now. They might have more time on their hands than ever before and a totally different set of things that they have to deal with. So I'm going to be putting together some resources targeted for that, but today's is foundational for everyone, and the theme is stand up straight. Just like your mom taught you and told you and kept trying to encourage you, stand up straight. Because the mental posture that you carry through this time is going to have everything to do with how you walk through it. I really believe that each of us needs to marshal our very best personal resources, internal resources in times of crisis. That is a tall order. I totally realize that. It's like when you go to the gym, when does your form start to fall apart? When you're getting tired. But when your form gets sloppy, it becomes a big problem because you can get injured very easily. And I think on the mental skills training side of things, it's even more important because the mind, the mentality piece, that is the great separator. If you have 10 people in a particular, industry, say, and they are wildly talented, the top of the line, but only one of them has a great mindset, he's going to outperform all the others combined. There's just no way around it. Like, that's how things work. There's a reason why athletes talk about, like this game is like 95% mental, because that's the one thing that can trip people up, but it's also the one thing that can really set people apart. So I think this is a time more than ever to focus on these things. I want to begin with a story about a guy named Nick Sitzman. Now, this is a dude that pretty much had everything going for him, right? He had a wife, 2 beautiful kids. He was just a young, strapping guy, got a lot going for him, right? He also had a challenge, and that is that he was a chronic worrier. That was sort of his Achilles heel. But anyway, he worked on a train crew, and he was out with the train crew one day working, and everybody left early because they were going to celebrate the foreman's birthday. And so everybody was headed out. Somehow during the hustle and bustle of this, Nick managed to get locked inside of a refrigerated boxcar. Being the chronic worrier that he was, he's already kind of at this level, right, as you can imagine. So when he realizes what happened and what was going on, he goes into panic immediately. He looks around, he starts freaking out, he starts beating as hard as he can on the walls of the boxcar, finding any object he can to make as much noise, screaming at the top of his lungs. And to no avail. Everybody's long gone at this point, right? So he doesn't want his wife and kids to not know what happened because he's feeling the impact of the cold. He's shivering, his kind of body's shutting down, all of this. And he manages to find a knife and inscribe in some of the wood paneling things like, "I'm getting so cold right now. I just want to close my eyes and go to sleep. I'm so sorry this happened. I love you. I think I'm freezing to death." And sure enough, next morning, crew comes in, they find him in the boxcar, and the autopsy later reveals that he died from freezing to death, of course. The really interesting part is the refrigeration unit on the particular boxcar he was in was not operational. And Nick froze to death in a 55-degree boxcar. That's the power of the mind and what fear and worry and panic can do to a person. Now, whether or not that story is true is kind of beside the point. The real point is the power of the mind. We see this with people if they're under hypnosis and hypnotic suggestion. Somebody can tell somebody in that state that they are, to see themselves in the Antarctic, say, and just feeling the bone-chilling cold. And these people actually start to show physiological signs and shivering and contracting. Then you can flip it on its head and you can tell them, you know what, you're on a beach in the Caribbean and you see yourself walking down and everything's so beautiful, the palm trees, there's a nice breeze, but at the same time you're realizing, gosh, the sun is just beating down on me and I think I'm hotter than I don't think I've ever been this hot in my entire life. And the people will start perspiring. So again, the power of the mind. And the point is fear and worry and anxiety, they make you contract. Negative states of mind, we know this, it suppresses our immune system. That is about the last thing any of us need right now as we're facing what's going on right now. Something that's going to suppress our immune system, like, are you kidding me? Now, I am a huge advocate for being aware of what's going on, being smart, paying attention, being strategic, coming up with plans, taking precautions, but none of that needs to have fear or worry or anxiety involved. None of those things are going to help. Now, I can't imagine that there is a possible intensity of trepidation that somebody could get themselves to that could in any way protect them from a virus. But it sure could go the other way in making them more susceptible to getting one. I hope that makes sense. Now, the next piece I just want to point out here before we get into some of the nuts and bolts is there's, in my belief, no such thing as certain times. There are only certain people. There's no certain times. Control and certainty in what's happening in the world is a total illusion, and history is replete with people who thought everything was going a certain direction. They were counting on the economy, business is good, I've got my health, my family's great, whatever, and had the rug pulled out from under them. One phone call, one day, one moment, overnight, everything changed for them. Now, the key is, because there's no uncertain times, there are only certain people. What you want to be is the person that has certainty within. That's the only place where true power and certainty lie, are within. And we have to, again, marshal those resources, build them up, be disciplined and focused to bring those about every single day. Because if you have a sense within you that no matter what comes against me, there's something more powerful inside that will overcome. I always find a way. I am powerful. And you start going through and doing a review in your mind of moments when you came up against challenges that seemed in your life insurmountable at the time, but you stepped up to the plate and you got the job done. And you reassure yourself and you remind yourself of that certainty that is within you. I think that's so important, because a mental posture of worry is just going to lead us to take frenzied and fearful action coming from a fearful place, not going to make the best decisions in that place, or it's just going to straight up immobilize us. Now, a mental posture of faith, on the other hand, that's going to lead us to taking positive action, right? We can still mitigate risk, but we can also keep our eyes and our ears and our spirits open to the opportunity that are presented to us so that we can make the absolute best out of the days ahead. Now, another example, like you could wake up in the morning and you're, again, the rug pulled out from under you type of thing. You or your spouse or one of your kids could have cancer tomorrow. Like, I don't know, something crazy that would be very devastating in a lot of ways and could really turn your world upside down. What good would worrying about that possibility today possibly do you for tomorrow? Again, worry's not going to help any of us out in that case, other than creating that atmosphere of fear. And again, anyone can choose fear and worry. Like, anybody can do that. That is automatic. That doesn't take any level of talent, doesn't take any level of discipline, anything particularly admirable to fall into that trap. None at all. These, fear and worry, automatic conditions of an undisciplined mind. But what should you be doing in a case of, like, instead of worrying, what could you do that would be constructive? Well, creating healthy bodies in your family through proper nutrition, exercise, stretching routines, yoga, whatever you want to do, and healthy minds through things like mastering positivity, which there's plenty of literature and studies on that does actually help people, even the chronically ill, overcome disease or cope with it better than the people who like choose pessimism and despair, right? So mental training, prayer, meditation, whatever it is for you, that's the kind of stuff that we can be doing. Now, choosing faith over fear, I wrote it down, it's gonna set you apart and sets an example that's desperately needed in the world right now. Desperately needed right now. So let's look at some different action steps that we could take and sort of like the mantra. I'll give you the mantra first. It's actually encourage, thank, work, and give. And if you will just remember this and repeat it to yourself and stay on top of it, it's gonna make such an impact for you. It's gonna make such an impact, and I'm honored to be a part of that. But the first piece is encourage. I had somebody kind of reach out and say, one of the things that I'm having challenges right now is staying encouraged. And I totally understand that. And so some basic advice and some foundational things is surround yourself with encouragement. That's number one. Surround yourself with encouraging things. Turn off the news. Like, you don't need to watch it 24/7 to know what's going on. Talking to friends on the phone that are freaked out for 3 hours a day, it's very difficult for you to develop a mindset powerful enough to overcome some of that. So some of it is just cutting things out that you're allowing yourself to fall into that may not be very productive and may be getting you discouraged. And then to build on top of it, we want to make sure we're surrounding ourselves with as much positivity and encouragement as we possibly can. Things that feed your mind, your spirit, whether it's a speaker, a communicator, somebody like a podcast, whatever it is for you, listening to audiobooks, reading good books, okay? Autobiographies, people that overcame things that are going to encourage your soul. So important. And then secondarily, the part of encouragement is sometimes you just have to encourage yourself. There's not always going to be somebody to pump you up. There's not always going to be a video or an audio or a book that's going to say just the right things. Sometimes you're exactly who you need, and you are your best encourager if you will allow yourself to be. All right, so encourage yourself. Remember the victories that you've had. That's number one. The second thing is think. Somebody else would reach out to me and said, one of the things I think people are not doing right now, and what I always tell people is think before you do. That's what they tell the people in their organization and some of the volunteers that they're working with them is just make sure, think before you walk in and actually do something. Now, I want to add to that when you do think and you make decisions, prior to that, you first need to be in a really resourceful place. You need to have your mind right because you're going to think and make different decisions if you're in a powerful position versus if you're in a place, again, of worry. So that's why the first step is making sure you're actively encouraging yourself, surrounding yourself and encouraging yourself so that when you go into step two, which is thinking, the second part of the mantra, that you're planning and you're being deliberate, but coming from a resourceful place. You will make very different choices when you're in a space like that. Hope that makes sense. Access the best parts of yourself first. That's the key. Now, third one is work. Work your tail off, right? You don't want to spend too much time thinking, right? You need to do some thinking and planning, but if you spend too much time there and not enough time acting, that can easily allow you to fall into some discouragement. I think we all know that, right? Like you lose momentum if you stay in just thinking mode, spinning cycles too long. So you want to get into working. Work your buns off. And a lot of people, again, they're coming from fear and worry, so they are what? They are immobilized right now. Work your buns off, sitting around and thinking and letting your mind wander. It's just a recipe for calamity. And I would not encourage you to do that. But if you get to work and put into action and place whatever things you can do next, sometimes people are like, I don't know what to do. I can't go to work. That's not what we're talking about. Outline some things that are important projects or objectives to you right now. And that's what the thinking process is for, is lining some of that out and then getting down to work, taking a step, a positive step in a positive direction, one positive action. Never underestimate the power of that. And the last piece is giving. Really, really having a focus on contributing to other people. Because when we focus on ourselves, that very much can lead us back into places of fear and worry and becoming self-consumed and anxiety. But when you're giving to others, you're naturally actually coming out of a place from abundance. Even if you feel like you don't have anything, when you find that something and you're able to give, you realize, I have more than I thought I did. And even if you're not consciously thinking that, subconsciously, that's going to have a huge impact for you to put yourself out there for other people and focus on them and not get so focused on ourselves that we lose sight of what's right in front of us and what could we do for somebody else right now. So remember this mantra as you're going through these times. Encourage, think, work, and give. Encourage, think, work, and give. Write it down. Listen to this again. Post it. Put it in your plan or whatever you need to do. And I hope that this has brought you some tremendous value. Thank you guys. We'll talk to you soon.